Good morning, Mark.
Good morning, Christian.
I am very happy to have you in my podcast, Sustainability Leadership Talks. It's great that the two of us have the chance to speak, especially having such a senior and experienced person with different roles in the past, not only sustainability. So great to have you, Mark.
Yeah. Thank you very much for your invitation. It's great to reflect on the topics and looking to the future.
Mark, we're going to speak today about the non-executive director and ESG. And this is something where you can bring a lot of interesting aspects and views to the table. You are an internationally experienced senior executive recognized for your leadership in sustainability, innovation, and transformative business strategy. Over the past 5 years, you have served as Senior Vice President Sustainability and Innovation at Wienerberger, an Austrian building materials group, where you played a central role in shaping and advancing the company's global sustainability and innovation agenda. Your career spans multiple industries and leadership roles, including managing and group director positions across Europe and beyond. You have recently transitioned into a new career phase focused on advisory and governance roles, working with organizations navigating sustainability, strategy, and transformation challenges. Currently, you are engaged with netzero.eu, a European scale-up specializing in ESG reporting and management solutions. So, Mark, from your point of view, let's start with the first question. What is the role of governance in effective ESG management within organizations?
Yeah, I think the maybe to answer that question is first we have to be more precise or more clear or understand what is the role of governance in general. And I think the core thing what I see is it is about the long-term success of the company. So the interesting thing, which I'm also learned at Cambridge, it is not about short-term optimization, running as best as possible the company, which is also essential, of course, but it's about the long-term success. And it's much about strategic oversight. That's another aspect. So I think that is important in general, independent of sustainability. It's about strategic oversight, and it is about deeper thinking about your risks. So it's what can happen, what are possible futures, and you want to have your risk governance in place. I think that are the main pillars. Have always been. It's evaluated the whole, developed the whole governance topic is getting more and more professional. A lot of educational organizations in Switzerland, France, and in Europe, in the world, are working on this topic. And then it automatically, if you think about it, the if you automatically think about it, the role of ESG becomes essential in, I would say, your strategic outlook. I think that the whole climate topics, a lot of the risks are very much, let's say, intimately integrated with the strategic topics. The risk management is also super essential. And I think it's also about oversight. It's not being the specialist on ESG as a governance or as a non-executive director, but it's really understanding how this, let's say, this new system looks like.
That's why I very much like the term sustainability, right? In contrast to ESG, with ESG being more focused on the reporting and compliance aspects, but sustainability as a concept is exactly what you just said. It's focused on the sustainable success of an organization, which also means challenging over and over again, what are we earning money with today and how can we earn money in the future? How can we be successful? What kind of transformations do we need to approach? So having that very hard short-term focus in organizations is of course not helpful for being successful on the longer run overall, irrespective of any kind of ESG topics. Mark, where should ESG ownership sit?
So ESG ownership, I think there's also reviewing that starts almost like at the I would say at the non-executive role, because first of all, if you look at the organizationally, it should be embedded in the governance structure. because if it doesn't start there, then it stays a siloed exercise. So I think it should, and I would propose it's always start with the governance. I think at Wienerberger we had good experience with specific committees, which is great. You always then are sure it's on the agenda of the, let's say, the non-executive board. Then you have to think about where is the ESG professionals, where are they based? Are they part of let's say, a reporting team? Are they a part of the, where are they all part, in which process are they part of? So and I think they're looking at the topics. I think it should be in the organizations embedded, of course, in the reporting side, because there's a lot of compliance going on and risk management. But I think we are moving now to a world where the sustainability department should be also at the table at when the strategies and the strategic planning is made, and also involved in let's say, the risk scenarios. It is a topic which is so integrated. You cannot say it is just compliance or it's just strategy. It's getting more, let's say, integrated in various departments of the organization.
Yeah, absolutely. I totally agree on that. But still, we see ESG becoming a siloed reporting exercise in many organizations, especially over the past 1.5 years. What do you think? Can governance prevent this from happening?
Well, maybe it's good to first understand why is it become a very much reporting thing. I think that most of the companies and also Wienerberger were really struggling with what Europe meant with ESRS and CSRD reporting. So it was really an exercise where a lot of people, sustainability department, non-financial reporting teams, were struggling with to understand what was going on. There was a lot of uncertainty. Do we right? We don't want to be, to provide the wrong information to our audience in the annual report. So there was a lot of focus on that. Maybe overemphasize that too much, but it was a learning curve. I think the good thing now is that we've gone through the learning curve. I think that's also the reason why I've become, advisory member of an IT company. I think the dust is gone. I think we know what to do. There's great experience. There's so many companies who did that. And also in combination with AI, with efficient IT tools, the whole burden is getting very much less. Meaning that you free up also your capacity. That's the good thing. You can and should free up, in my opinion, the capacity that you get involved in your future looking exercises. So what is the risk report of saying for the next 2 and 10 years? What are the major trends? You can go into scenario planning. There are a lot of topics where the sustainability department can move to, so they can move slowly to the strategic side. They can better understand what does it mean for the impact for our products. They can be they can fuel and provide information to innovation processes, fuel information to let's say, corporate positioning. So I think that's the situation where we're in now.
Yeah. Okay. You mentioned already that you're doing the board director program at the Cambridge University at the moment. What is their view on governance and ESG?
I think that they are not per se very much keen on the let's say the fashionable word ESG. I think that they have this tradition of this long-term sustainable view on things, and that they have a deeply rooted beliefs that that should be part of governance. So it's about the long-term success, also the ethics around that, your responsibilities. They are very deep also on future scenarios and on risk management, and that all ties in very nicely together with the governance topic. And and they do that, of course, because it's a university. They do that very much science based. So they really take a topic like risk management, scenario planning. They take it to a very next level, and then trying to convert it to let's say non-academic persons. I don't see myself as an academic person. They're trying to bring it back to people who run businesses or want to become a non-executive director.
Yeah, very, very understandable. Great view, and of course, let's say some kind of reassurance of what many people also in a family or owner run context also have as a view when being more focused on the longer success of the organization and on short-term profitability. You're now acting as a non-executive director. So when we focus on this role, what would you say? How is the legal context for non-executive directors evolving in relation to ESG?
Yeah, I think it depends a little bit on the size of the company. I'm now working with the scale up, so I think the legal topics are quite limited. If you look at what I've done at the Wienerberger company, the legal context is first of all reporting. That is ESRS, and that is a big topic. Because again, you have to define your material, let's say, information you need to report. You also have to take, and we already did that. I think a lot of stock listed companies were always very good in a risk register. So the risk register is very much correlated to the risk and opportunities asked by that. But that is your that you should have in place. That's your compliance side. I think in general there are much more legal things popping up in terms of your product liabilities, about how do you treat your colleagues, your employees, the product side of that, your emissions. How seriously do you report that? What do you do to convert that? So I think in general, depending on the country where you are, and it's not only but also in which market you are, in which city you are active. So it's a multiple layer thing. It's about very much about understanding the risks and being, let's say, take responsibilities. Be first of all trying to be transparent about it, and do the best as you can. It's not that as a governance person, non-executive director, you cannot know it all, but at least you show. I think you should show good faith, and you've done what you can do as best as possible.
Hmm. You just mentioned that it's a lot of the sustainability and ESG aspects are also around risk management. So when it comes to boards, what do you think should be their, let's say, actions around liabilities that companies face in ESG disclosure and assurance contexts?
I think that in terms of disclosure and ESG, the good thing about the European regulation versus the UK regulation, it's rule based. So in a way, it is not. It's not. You're quite okay, because it's clearly defined. That's the good thing about the European regulation, that it says clearly what you have to report, how you do it. And I think the uncertainty there, as I just described, that we've gone through our first learning exercise, I think we all feel much more confident there how to do that. The next step would be choose your battles. I think most companies have made, there was a lot of research done also by Deloitte and others. We've been too broad and too wide, and sometimes also too fluffy about our, how green we are or whatever. Right? So I think it's about choosing your battles in reporting, trying there to be smaller in the data points, but then be very, go deeper, that really take that as data or as scenarios or as information, which helps you to become a better organization. Because then if the day is not about reporting, then you go into the improvement phase. If for instance CO2, because if you use gas for a production process, it is material, and then it becomes how serious do you take the efforts, or what does it mean to reduce that?
Yeah. Building on what you just said, how does ESG governance change the way boards should think about risk management? What is your view on that?
I think that is the biggest change which I see and which I'm learning now, is that the risk management traditionally was well organized, but it was always the known categories. So you would look at certain risks, and then there was a serious process to audit the risk, and then you would have some mitigation measures, and then you could, I would not say take the box, because then I underestimate all the things that have been done. But this way of looking at risks which are not related to each other is not working in the current world anymore. The mega trends, the ambiguity, the changes are so fast that you have to beef up this whole process of risk understanding. And one of the ways you could do that, there's a lot of information there. There's risk reports are published. So you should first of all look at, there's a bigger taxonomy of risk, and then not take them all, then to really sit down also with the board and the management team. So what are areas of risk which could be close to us? So imagine what are the 2-3 main things which you can do. But then take not an exercise where we say, okay, these are our top, this is a mitigation plan. Really go into almost like scenario planning. Really think, if this reality would unfold, what does it mean? What would happen? Because there's a lot of things happening in this, let's say, new ecosystem. And then, okay, then look back at what is our current strategy. Where is in our strategy, where are the vulnerabilities, or where do we good? It's not about only what about the problem, where we even can be better than the competition, where we can have more value to our customers. That backcasting to our current strategy, that is a level maybe done by organizations, but let's say in the mid-size companies I've worked for, it's not at that level yet.
Yeah. Some people still see ESG risks being, let's say, separate, or generally ESG being separate from the rest of the organization. Would you say that ESG risks should be treated as a separate category or embedded in enterprise risk management?
Yeah, I think that the good thing about the European system is that they ask you to embed it in all the risk in the total risk registers. I think if I look at most companies I know, they have embedded the ESG risk in their risk register, which is great, because usually the risk departments are very, they're very great, extremely intelligent people running these departments. So they've integrated that very seriously. But then again, you have to think, where does the risk management department work with? Do they work with not only with the CFO, but also with the CEO? And do they link this to the strategic planning? And that's where I see the next steps will be. Because it's not only about risk. Behind every risk, there's an opportunity. The question is it your opportunity, or is it the opportunity of your competitor? That's or let's say the scale up or the startup. And that is that's where the big, let's say, opportunity is. And it's also about the governance should enforce focus. So it's not about, let's say, run after all climate risks, run after all the ESG risks. Let's not to be, be complete. Choose your battles here. What do you think is material risk or plausible future for our company? And sometimes you don't even have to be visionary. We always think it's super visionary. Sometimes the signs are on the wall. The Ukraine war was already going on for ages, but a lot of we never saw that. A lot of climate changes are going on. We know that cities, for instance, are already 4 or 5 degrees hotter than outside cities. We know cities become unbearably hot. You don't have to be visionary. It's just data. So there's a lot of data out there. What will happen in the next 2 to 10 years? The question is, what do you do with it? And not only a direct response, but what does it mean for the city? Does it mean that people will not live in the cities anymore? Especially with the demographics, a lot of older people. What will happen? I don't know. That's the kind of scenario planning and envisioning plausible futures. I think then, what would that mean for our current strategy? And what are the no regret actions anyhow? What are we doing anyhow to do that? It's not about creating completely new strategies, but where can we build on, and how can we put additional layers of competencies or products or services on that?
It's great what you just say. I mean, it resonates very well with me. We're speaking about a lot of data. A lot of data can be generated. The question is, what do we use, or what do we use that data for? How do we use it for many business decisions? And I think that is definitely an opportunity where AI can support us in using this data and analyzing the data. And then, as you just said, taking a look at plausible paths for the future. How should we adjust? What kind of risks can emerge? In this context, from your point of view, what signals should boards watch for to detect emerging ESG risks early?
Yeah, maybe it's the one thing I didn't talk about governance is it's about culture, and I think
Mhm.
the culture is of organizations in general is siloed because everyone wants to excel in his role.
Yeah.
So I think silo sounds very negative. It's not, because you want to be efficient. So,
Mhm.
so in general that, and in general organizations tend to have an inside out culture. So,
Mhm.
so we sit down in meeting rooms and endlessly fantasize how the world could look like.
Yeah.
But it's great that what I say, you should also foster an outside in culture.
Mhm.
So signals come from, and then I come to the signals. Signals come sometimes already for people who know that. If you talk, for instance, in the building materials industry, if you talk to cities who are planning a city, or you
Yeah.
talk to architects or real estate developers, or you talk with scientists, it can be all kind of, or social housing organization, you get the signals.
Mhm.
Maybe not as a direct signal, but they see things we don't see because we are so busy, making our building materials or making cement or steel, which is super important that we do that. But
Mhm.
outside in culture and getting this information in is important. And then also a culture where one idea is not dominated by the board too strong. Sometimes we have these strong beliefs, which is good, which makes us cohesive in the organization. But there should be, we should allow a certain kind of ambiguity and uncertainty. Say, well, maybe, okay, we've been doing this for 200 years, but maybe this could change. It's not that we
Yeah.
want to create confusion here, but that is, you can be disrupted. That's what we saw in a lot of industries, that people didn't see the signals. They were underplaying new things, new innovations, and saying this is the normal behavior. It's, the electric car is stupid, it will not work.
Mhm.
There's
Mhm.
100,000 examples of that. What happens? So
Yeah.
reading signals is very much about talking to people, relating to people, what I call stakeholder dialogues. That's what I also implemented at Wienerberger.
Mhm.
Optimize that, bring your local management teams together with key customers, with municipalities, with all your, let's say, stakeholders which have something to say.
Yeah.
And then we are all intelligent enough to analyze that and to come up with the right conclusions. Once you have information,
Mhm.
most of the time there are very intelligent people working all over the place. So then we come up with plausible futures based on some information we can work with.
Mhm.
And that fuels, and that's the fun part. That's for me the fun part. Then it flows in this testing of innovations. Usually it's
Yeah.
also great to do some lighthouse projects to test your assumptions. Then you go into the agile working and say, okay, you want to have a zero emission house, how does it work like that?
Mhm.
So that is not the solution, but at least that's what I've done. And that's based on my experience.
I very much like that, what you just said. And a term comes into my mind because, I mean, leadership and dealing with people is obviously one core aspect in my role. And that term is fear. So what we often see here is fear in people's behavior. So the background of their behavior is often fear of
Yeah,
losing, for example, something, fear
yeah,
of we have to do something else. I don't know how that will work in the future. I'm uncertain about the way that we need to choose. How can we manage this as an organization? We have not probably done it in the past. How can we be successful with it in the future? So it's this fear of loss, fear of uncertainty. And I think that's a very important aspect that you just
yeah.
mentioned, that this is highly relevant for someone driving the sustainability in an organization to understand the concept of fear behind the behavior of people, right?
Yeah. Especially in the transformation processes. I
Yeah.
mean, that is important. But that's also why it's important that in all these processes you bring in different disciplines uh, to understand what's happening in the world.
Yeah.
And I think what I found out with these interviews, we also published them in our annual report. And so if an architect says that he sees the buildings like that, it's not me as the CEO or sustainability manager saying we need a greener building. But if a
Mhm.
customer said that, everyone in the organization says, okay, so this is not an idea of us. This is
Yeah.
happening outside.
Mhm.
And if then the organization moves in direction with
Mhm.
adapting itself, it even creates confidence,
Yeah.
because people say, we are part of the innovations, we are part of the solution, because no one wants to be part of the problem. And we all are part of the problem, but shaping and it's always about the narrative, shaking that we understand it is let's say a new demand. You could not say a threat, but we are part of that solution. That also motivates people to move on and to be part of that team.
Very, very good. Mark, taking a look into the future now, and obviously ESG governance will have an impact on long-term strategy of organizations. You worked on this topic intensively at Wienerberger. What did you find as being the impacts on the long-term strategy of Wienerberger when you co-created the ESG roadmap?
I think that I think first of all, what Wienerberger did well and what we did well is that we sliced down the future in shorter term programs. That helps anyhow the transition. Because when I started in 2019, everyone had a plan that it would be CO2 neutral in 2050. And in 2035, there was a hole in the ground where all the CO2 would disappear. That were in general the storylines. I say it a little bit cynical, but that was the storyline. I think breaking it down in shorter term programs is essential because then you can start to move and transition. And what I clearly distinguished in the transition plan of Wienerberger is where you're part of the problem, because you don't only want to talk about your green propositions, because that is greenwashing. So clearly you have some things you have to solve. CO2, scope 1, 2, and 3. You have to have certain emissions you want to get rid of. This is priority number one. Don't hide away from that. Be very super transparent on that. But then we came to, I think sometimes your solutions, you have to think about the mega trends or things happening, especially in legislation. Legislation is the biggest, clearest change of Europe. And one of the I can give you an example, is the legislation Europe says in 28, public buildings have to be zero emission. And as of 2030, all buildings have to be zero emission. That's not a vision, that's happening. That means already that the real estate developers who plan 4 or 5 years ahead start thinking about that.
Yeah.
And then we came up with the idea. So where are we part of? What are we already doing? So there's not that we sort of say, oh, there's no. So there's already something you do well as a company. So we defined and based also with the taxonomy, which products and services already contribute to this type of design. And we found out we were at 67% or something. I'm not here the auditor, but something like that. And then we said we want to move this percentage to 75%. So we want to have a bigger impact and a bigger part of the solution of providing solutions to that. Yeah. It sounds very minimal, but if you have like 3.5 billion sales in products, you cannot say that you stop certain products. It's about adding new layers of technology, and that's a very powerful way to do that, because everyone recognizes you're part of the solution. Everyone also internally understands that. And then it starts providing a lot of things about what does the acquisition fits in this plan. So if we buy now a company who is very good in solar products, it ticks the box because you immediately move that. So your innovations are related to that. So that is powerful. And I always say with companies, think where you're part of the solution and make it tangible. Same we did for water management. Our water management, Wienerberger is not only building materials, but also, let's say, in the water management sector. So your solutions often there create water's efficiency. Yeah. And then if you sit down with some universities, say, okay, how can we make, let's say, objective information of how much a certain solution saves water? And then you can say, we save now so much water with our solutions, and we want in 26, we want to save as much water per year as the water consumption of the city of Frankfurt. And this is a narrative, it's storytelling, I understand that, but that helps, that sticks to your brain. So you want once you start looking at the products, also again, our positions, innovations, things we do, it starts to stick to that. And that's on the product side. I would say that's not the end game, but at least you get things moving.
Okay, very good. Let's focus finally on board level takeaways. So from your point of view, what questions distinguish an effective supervisory board from a passive one?
Yeah, I think that to recap it, I think you have to review your own, let's say, board.
Yeah.
I'm amazed how I would get some education. It sounds very boring, but there's so many great uh, institutes in Europe,
Yeah.
but in the US probably, which I don't know. But let's say in Europe, there's a fantastic short-term programs which are really focused also on experienced board members. It's not about academic talk. It's about all the things we just talked about, and providing also a platform where you can discuss as a board member with other board members and share experience. So this educational power we have in Europe is fantastic. Cambridge, INSEAD, IMD, there are so many tons of great institutes of that. Then think about your structure. Is it a fantastic hardworking department somewhere which would we did and how did we integrate it not only in compliance but in the whole strategic planning? I would beef up the whole risk management. Not saying that we tick the box with risk management from a compliance point of view, but do we really go in scenarios and think plausible futures and backcast it to what does it mean for our strategies? That I would do. And I would then also go into that was, let's say, the final layer. I would also say, how does AI impact our ecosystem?
Yeah.
Because in the strategic development, we didn't touch that, but it's all about, we always think as an industry, we think we're in the business of walls or roofs or cars. And I think that AI and also platforms really sometimes really change the whole thing.
Yeah.
I mean, Wienerberger was successful to, for instance, Tesla came with a solar roof because they had the battery. So the good thing is that somehow they didn't get the technology right. But there's a lot of things happening, and also start capturing the power of AI in what does it mean in terms of our business propositions.
Yeah.
And also what does it mean in our value chains, and how can we link better data from value chains and to be more precise and also to be more efficient. It's not about more, it's about how can we focus on things which makes us more efficient also. So that are the and also have a little bit of fun about it. It's not, if we take everything, the world is so serious and it is so dramatic in a way, we have to keep the positive spirit that we can maneuver our company, be resilient, be adaptive, and trying to become a learning organization which maneuvers as much and as good as possible as you can as a human being.
Yeah. Excellent. Very much appreciated, Mark. You also had, let's say, some kind of call of action now in your final words. But what else would you like to maybe highlight for non-executive directors, for boards? What kind of questions probably should they ask? What kind of things should they focus on at the moment?
Yeah, I think that they should focus on let's say on the shorter term, on professional more. What are the key risks? What are the, let's say, the major trends which could affect our company, and not take all of them. I mean, for some companies it could be demographics. We know that the whole world is getting older, but for others it will be, the geopolitical situations. I was never so much in geopolitical, but you cannot come around. So define your key trends together with the board. It's not your own meant. So what are the key trends? And then start use that, combine that, and start thinking about how does this plausible future could look like. What are the ecosystems? So that's one, so plausible futures. And I would think of ecosystem, because that makes you also more resilient.
Yeah.
It's not about product. What is not about the industry is what is the value do we create as a company, and who are all the players there. We need to know this not even value chain. We need to say what is around it, and that helps us also to better understand and quickly look at the right data. Because if it's coming from an architect, clearly as a building material, but what are the other, let's say, stakeholders or persons or groups in our ecosystem which define our future?
Yeah. Mark, very, very appreciated. So thanks a lot for your insights and the information that you gave us here. Very appreciated with the experience that you can bring to the table. So thanks a lot for that discussion.
Thank you very much for the questions, and we'll stay in touch.
We will. Have a nice day. Bye-bye, Mark.
Thank you. Bye, Christian.